Daniel stood at the back of the giant room, his heart beating so fast it hurt. Everyone wore black. Everyone looked sad. But Daniel felt something different. Something was wrong. Very, very wrong. In the middle of the room sat a white coffin. Inside lay Emma, the millionaire's daughter. She wore a beautiful lavender dress. Her hands were folded on her chest. Her face was pale and still. Everyone said she was dead, but Daniel didn't believe them. He watched Emma's face carefully. He had been watching for an hour now. While the adults cried and hugged each other, Daniel's eyes never left her. His mother, the maid, stood beside him. She squeezed his shoulder and whispered, "Don't stare, Daniel. It's not polite." But Daniel couldn't stop. Something about Emma looked different from dead things. He had seen a dead bird once in the garden. It had looked empty, like nobody lived inside anymore. Emma didn't look like that. She looked like she was sleeping. Deep, deep sleeping. His mind drifted back to 3 weeks ago. Back when Emma was alive and laughing. "Come on, Daniel, before Cook sees us," Emma had whispered, her green eyes shining with mischief. Daniel had hesitated at the kitchen door. He was just a maid's son. He wasn't supposed to play in the big mansion. He definitely wasn't supposed to steal cookies with the rich girl. "I'll get in trouble," he had said. Emma had grabbed his hand. "You're my friend, not a servant. Friends share cookies. Now, hurry." They had run barefoot across the cold marble floors, giggling as they stuffed chocolate chip cookies into their mouths. Emma's long blonde hair flew behind her like a flag. Daniel's curly black hair bounced with each step. This summer, Emma had said, crumbs on her lips, "We're climbing the big oak tree in the backyard, all the way to the top. We won't be scared of anything anymore. Promise?" Daniel had asked, "Promise?" Emma had said, holding out her pinky finger. They had locked their pinkies together and shook on it. That was 3 weeks ago, before everything changed. Daniel blinked away the memory. His eyes burned with tears he refused to let fall. The funeral room smelled like flowers and sadness. Hundreds of white roses surrounded Emma's coffin. Rich people in expensive suits stood in groups, whispering. "Such a tragedy," one woman said. "So young," another replied. "The doctors did everything they could," a man in a gray suit added. Daniel clenched his fists. The doctors, they were wrong. They had to be wrong. He remembered the terrible day. It was a Tuesday. Emma had been playing in the garden when she suddenly stopped. Her face went pale. She grabbed her chest and fell to the ground. Everyone had screamed. Servants had run everywhere. Someone had called for help. Daniel's mother had pulled him away, but he had seen everything. He had seen Emma lying on the grass, not moving. The ambulance came with loud sirens. Men in uniforms had rushed Emma away. For 3 days, she stayed in the hospital. Daniel and his mother had waited, hoping, praying. Then the news came. The doctors said Emma's heart had stopped. They said they tried everything. Machines, medicine, electric shocks. Nothing worked. They said she was gone. Mrs. Montgomery, Emma's mother, had screamed so loud the whole mansion heard it. She had cried for hours. Mr. Montgomery had died 2 years ago, so Emma was all she had left. Now, everyone said she had nobody. The funeral was planned quickly. Too quickly, Daniel thought. It had only been 4 days since Emma collapsed. For days since those doctors gave up. Maybe they stopped too soon. Daniel had whispered to his mother last night. "Hush, child." His mother had said, tears in her own eyes. "The doctors know best. Don't make this harder." But standing here now, watching Emma, Daniel felt in his bones. Something was wrong with this funeral. Emma had promised to climb the tree with him. Emma never broke promises. Never. He studied her face again. Was that a tiny bit of pink in her cheeks? Yesterday, when the coffin first arrived, she had been white as paper. Now, maybe, just maybe, there was color. Just a little bit. Daniel's stomach twisted. His hands felt sweaty. What if he was right? What if Emma was alive? But what if he was wrong? Everyone would think he was crazy. The rich people would laugh at him. They already thought he didn't belong here. A tall man in a black suit walked to the front. The priest. He opened a big book and began to speak. We are gathered here today to say goodbye to Emma Rose Montgomery. No, the word screamed in Daniel's head. Not goodbye. Not yet. He looked at Emma's hands, folded peacefully on her chest. He remembered how those hands had grabbed his when they ran through the mansion, how they had picked flowers together, how Emma had taught him to skip stones at the pond. The priest kept talking. Emma was a bright light in this world, taken from us too soon. Daniel's heart pounded harder. He had to do something. But what? Who would listen to a 9-year-old boy in ragged overalls? Who would believe the maid's son over the doctor's? He looked at Mrs. Montgomery sitting in the front row. Her face was hidden behind a black veil, but her shoulders shook with crying. She loved Emma more than anything. If there was even a tiny chance Emma was alive, wouldn't you want to know? Daniel took one small step forward. His mother grabbed his arm. "Daniel, no," she whispered urgently. "Stay here." But Daniel's feet wouldn't listen. He took another step, and another. His whole body trembled. Fear filled his chest, but something stronger pushed him forward. Love, friendship, truth. The priest's voice echoed through the room. People bowed their heads. Some cried quietly. Daniel kept walking, slowly, toward the coffin, toward Emma, toward the truth nobody else could see. His mother tried to follow, but someone held her back. Daniel heard whispers starting behind him. What is that boy doing? Someone stop him. How disrespectful. But Daniel didn't stop. He reached the coffin and looked down at Emma's face. Up close, he saw it clearly now. The tiny pink in her cheeks. The way her chest seemed to move, just barely, like the smallest breath. He reached out his hand, trembling, toward Emma, and that's when everything exploded. Stop. A man's voice boomed through the room like thunder. Daniel's hand froze in the air, inches from Emma's face. Heavy footsteps rushed toward him. Strong hands grabbed his shoulders and yanked him backward. Daniel stumbled but didn't fall. "How dare you?" the man shouted. It was Mr. Patterson, one of Mrs. Montgomery's relatives. His face was red with anger. "You filthy little boy. This is a funeral, not a playground." The whole room went silent. Everyone stared at Daniel. Some faces showed shock. Others showed disgust. A few looked curious. Daniel's legs shook. His mouth felt dry, but he forced the words out. "She's not dead," he said. His voice came out small and shaky. "What did you say?" Mr. Patterson's grip tightened on Daniel's shoulder, making him wince. Daniel spoke louder. "Emma's not dead. I can see it. She's still alive." Gasps filled the room. Whispers exploded everywhere. "The boy has lost his mind. This is outrageous. Someone remove him immediately." Mrs. Montgomery lifted her veil. Her eyes were red and swollen from crying. She looked at Daniel with such sadness, it made his heart hurt. "Daniel," she said softly, "I know you loved Emma. We all did. But she's gone, sweetheart. The doctors are wrong." Daniel shouted. He didn't mean to yell, but the words burst out of him. They made a mistake. Look at her. Really look at her. Mr. Patterson started dragging Daniel toward the door. "That's enough. You've disturbed this family enough. Out! Now!" "No. Wait." Daniel dug his feet into the carpet. He twisted around to face Mrs. Montgomery. "Please, just look at her cheeks. There's pink in them. And her chest. It's moving. I've been watching for an hour. Dead people don't have pink cheeks." "The boy is delusional," the doctor said, stepping forward. He was an older man with gray hair and a stern face. "I examined Emma myself. There was no heartbeat, no brain activity. I'm very sorry, but this child is in denial." Daniel felt hot tears sliding down his face now. He didn't care. "You're wrong. Emma promised. We climbed a big oak tree this summer. She promised. And Emma never breaks promises. Daniel, please." His mother begged from the back of the room. Her face was full of fear. She could lose her job for this. They could lose their home. "Come away. Don't make this worse." But Daniel couldn't stop. Not now. Not when Emma needed him. 3 weeks ago, he said. speaking fast before anyone could stop him. Emma and I stole cookies from the kitchen. We ran through the house barefoot. She said I was her friend, not a servant. She said friends share everything. Some people in the crowd shifted uncomfortably. Rich people didn't like being reminded that their children played with poor children. 2 months ago, Daniel continued, Emma fell off her bike and scraped her knee. It bled a lot. She cried. I helped her back to the house. She hugged me and said I was brave. Mrs. Montgomery's face crumpled. Fresh tears rolled down her cheeks. Last summer, Daniel said, his voice breaking, Emma and I caught fireflies in jars. We let them go before bedtime because Emma said all living things deserve to be free. She said that. All living things deserve to be free. The room was completely quiet now. Even Mr. Patterson had stopped dragging Daniel. Everyone listened. Emma is a living thing, Daniel whispered, and she deserves to be free. Free from that coffin, because she's not dead. I know she's not. The priest cleared his throat. Young man, I understand your grief. Loss is hard, especially for children, but death is a part of life. We must accept. No. Daniel pulled away from Mr. Patterson and ran back to the coffin. This time, nobody grabbed him fast enough. He reached Emma and placed his small hand on her forehead, just like his mother did when checking for fevers. Everyone gasped. She's warm, Daniel said, his eyes going wide. She's warm. Dead people are cold. But Emma is warm. That's impossible, the doctor said, but he didn't sound sure anymore. Feel for yourself. Daniel shouted. Touch her. Check her. Do something. Mrs. Montgomery stood up. Her legs wobbled. She took one step toward the coffin. Then another. She looked terrified, like she was afraid to hope. Is he? She couldn't finish the sentence. Could he be? Mrs. Montgomery, the doctor said firmly, please don't let this boy's fantasy give you false hope. I examined your daughter thoroughly. She had no pulse, no. Then examine her again. Daniel screamed. He had never screamed at an adult before. His mother taught him to always be polite. But this was different. This was Emma. What if you made a mistake? What if you missed something? People make mistakes. The doctor's face turned red. I have been practicing medicine for 30 years. I do not make mistakes about death. My teacher makes mistakes on math problems sometimes, Daniel said. My mother makes mistakes when she's cooking. Everybody makes mistakes, even doctors. This is absurd, Mr. Patterson said. The boy is clearly disturbed. Someone call security and... Wait! Everyone turned. Mrs. Montgomery stood right beside the coffin now. She stared down at Emma's face. Her hand trembled as she reached out. His mother died when I was young, she said quietly. I remember touching her hand at the funeral. It was so cold, like ice, like touching stone. She placed her palm on Emma's cheek. The room held its breath. Mrs. Montgomery's eyes went huge. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She pressed her hand harder against Emma's face. Then she grabbed Emma's wrist, feeling for a pulse. Oh, my God, she whispered. What? The doctor rushed forward. What is it? She's... Mrs. Montgomery's voice shook. She's not cold. She's warm. And I think I feel... The doctor pushed past Daniel and pressed his fingers against Emma's neck. His confident expression crumbled. His face went pale. Seconds ticked by. 5, 10, 15. Impossible, he breathed. What? Mr. Patterson demanded. What's impossible? The doctor looked up at the crowd. His eyes were wild with shock. There's a pulse, he said. The room exploded. A pulse. That's impossible. She's alive? People jumped from their seats. Some rushed toward the coffin. Others stood frozen in shock. A woman in the back fainted, and her husband caught her. The doctor's hand shook as he pressed his fingers harder against Emma's neck. It's weak, he said, his voice trembling. Very weak. But it's there. She has a heartbeat. Mrs. Montgomery let out a sound that was half scream, half sob. She grabbed Emma's hand and squeezed it. Emma, Baby, can you hear me? Daniel's whole body felt light, like he might float away. He had been right. He had been right. But fear still gripped his heart. A pulse didn't mean Emma would wake up. A pulse didn't mean everything would be okay. We need an ambulance, the doctor shouted. Now! Someone call 911. Mr. Patterson fumbled with his phone, his angry face now full of panic and confusion. How is this possible? Mrs. Montgomery cried, still holding Emma's hand. You said she was dead. You signed the death certificate. The doctor wiped sweat from his forehead. His confident doctor face was gone. Now he looked scared and confused. I don't understand. When I examined her at the hospital, there was nothing. No heartbeat, no breathing, no response to any stimuli. By every measure we have, she was... But she wasn't, Daniel said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. He stood beside the coffin, small and scared, but somehow brave. The doctor stared at Daniel, like he was seeing him for the first time. No, he admitted, his voice barely a whisper. She wasn't. Check her breathing, Daniel said. Put your hand near her mouth, like this. Daniel held his hand close to Emma's lips. He had seen his mother do this once with a baby bird they found in the garden, checking if it was still alive. The doctor bent down and held his hand near Emma's face. His eyes widened. There's breath, he said, sounding amazed. Faint, but she's breathing. Mrs. Montgomery collapsed to her knees beside the coffin, sobbing into Emma's hand. My baby is alive. The priest stepped back, his prayer book falling from his hands. I've been a priest for 40 years, he said, his voice full of wonder. I've never seen anything like this. What happened to her? Mr. Patterson asked. He didn't sound angry anymore, just confused and maybe a little ashamed. The doctor shook his head. I need to run tests. But if I had to guess... He paused, choosing his words carefully. There's a very rare condition. It's called suspended animation. The body slows down so much that it seems dead. The heartbeat becomes so faint that our equipment can't detect it. Breathing becomes so shallow it's invisible. Why didn't you check for this at the hospital? Someone in the crowd demanded. The doctor's face flushed with shame. Because it's so rare. In my 30 years of practice, I've only read about it in medical journals. I never thought. He couldn't finish. Daniel spoke up. You gave up too fast. The words hung in the air. Nobody argued with him. The doctor looked down at his shoes. Sirens wailed outside. The ambulance was coming. Daniel stepped back to let the adults work, but his eyes never left Emma's face. Come on, Emma, he whispered. Wake up. Please wake up. Mrs. Montgomery stroked Emma's hair. I'm here, sweetheart. Mama's here. You're safe now. You're safe. And then, like magic, Emma's eyelids fluttered. Daniel's heart jumped into his throat. She's moving. Mrs. Montgomery shouted. Her eyes. Look. Emma's eyelids fluttered again. Slowly, so slowly they opened. Just a crack. Then a bit more. Her green eyes looked cloudy and confused. She blinked once. Twice. Her mouth moved, but no sound came out at first. Then, in a voice so quiet it was almost not there, Emma whispered one word. Daniel. Daniel felt tears explode from his eyes. Happy tears. The best tears he'd ever cried. I'm here. Emma, I'm here. Emma's eyes found him. A tiny, tiny smile touched her lips. You came. Of course I came, Daniel said, crying and laughing at the same time. You promised we'd climb the tree. I wasn't going to let you break that promise. Emma's smile grew just a little bigger. Tree, she whispered. Summer. Mrs. Montgomery was crying so hard she could barely see. She kissed Emma's forehead over and over. Oh, thank God. Thank God. Thank you, God. The paramedics burst through the door with a stretcher and equipment. They rushed to the coffin, checking Emma's vital signs, asking the doctor questions. Heartbeat is stabilizing, one paramedic said. Blood pressure is low but rising, another added. We need to get her to the hospital immediately. They carefully lifted Emma from the coffin. Mrs. Montgomery held her hand the whole time, refusing to let go. As they moved Emma to the stretcher, Mrs. Montgomery turned to Daniel. "You saved her," she said, tears streaming down her face. "You saved my daughter's life." Daniel shook his head. "I just knew she wasn't gone. I could feel it." "You believed when no one else would," Mrs. Montgomery said. "You were brave when everyone told you to be quiet. You saw the truth when all of us, even the doctors, were blind." She pulled Daniel into a tight hug. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Daniel hugged her back, his face pressed into her shoulder. The paramedics wheeled Emma toward the door. Mrs. Montgomery followed, still holding Emma's hand, but she paused at the doorway and looked back. "Daniel," she said, "when Emma gets better, and she will get better, you and she are climbing that tree. Together. I promise you that." Daniel smiled through his tears. "I'll be waiting." As they left, the crowd stood in stunned silence. Some people looked at Daniel with new respect. Others looked embarrassed, remembering how they had treated him. Mr. Patterson stared at his shoes, his face red. Daniel's mother finally reached him and pulled him into her arms. "Oh, Daniel," she sobbed. "My brave, brave boy." The doctor approached them. He looked older now, tired and humbled. "Young man," he said to Daniel, "you taught me something important today. Sometimes the heart knows things that science misses. Sometimes faith sees what eyes cannot. I'm sorry I didn't listen to you." Daniel nodded. "It's okay. You can listen next time." The doctor smiled sadly. "Yes, next time I will." 3 weeks later, the big oak tree stretched toward the sky, its branches thick and strong. Daniel stood at the bottom, looking up. "Ready?" Emma asked beside him. She was still a bit pale and tired easily, but she was alive. She was here. She was real. "Ready," Daniel said. Together, they began to climb. Branch by branch, higher and higher. Mrs. Montgomery watched from below, her hand over her heart, but she was smiling. When they reached the top, Daniel and Emma sat on a thick branch and looked out over the estate. The whole world spread below them. "Thank you," Emma said quietly, "for not giving up on me." "That's what friends do," Daniel said. "We never give up on each other." Emma held out her pinky finger. "Promise we'll always be friends? No matter what." Daniel locked his pinky with hers. "Promise." They sat there together as the sun began to set. Two kids who had beaten death itself, sitting on top of the world. What the story teaches us. Sometimes the smallest voice speaks the biggest truth. Sometimes a child sees what adults miss. Sometimes courage means standing alone against everyone, even when you're scared. Daniel didn't have money or power or fancy degrees. He just had love and faith and the bravery to trust what his heart told him. Emma was alive because one boy refused to accept what everyone else believed. He looked when others looked away. He spoke when others told him to be silent. He believed when others gave up. If this story touched your heart, here's what you can do. Like this story if you believe that children sometimes see truths that adults miss. If you think Daniel's courage deserves to be celebrated, share this story with someone who needs to remember that hope is never foolish, that love gives us strength, and that one voice speaking truth can change everything. Subscribe to hear more stories about ordinary people who do extraordinary things. Stories about courage, faith, and the miracles that happen when we refuse to give up. Drop a comment and tell us, would you have believed Daniel? Or would you have believed the doctors? Would you have had the courage to step forward like he did? The world needs more people like Daniel. People who trust their hearts. People who fight for what's right even when everyone says they're wrong. People who see life where others see death. Be that person. Be brave. Be bold. Be the voice that speaks truth. And never, ever give up on the people you love. Thank you for reading. Until the next story, keep believing in miracles.